questions. I just like, I'm new to this personal brand stuff. I mean, I think you've been doing it a little while longer than me. Like, I cannot believe what's coming from it. It is just crazy. Fucking nuts. It's like,
yeah. I've been under an NDA for almost my whole career, and so now that I'm not, and I like, Nick is like, go do it, and Daniel does it, and now I do it, and we do it for other people. It's like, why were we living under a rock before?
So, like, I decided in 2012 to not participate as a consumer of social media because I watched this speech that this behavioral psychologist named Dan Ariely gave at this investor conference. And he's basically like, he was like, okay, let me explain to you what's happening. The market is for your attention. They're hiring the smartest engineers in the world, and AI is getting better. If you think it's addictive now, you have no idea what it's going to be like in 10 years. No one will be able to control their own lives or minds. I was like, I'm not participating in that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it was like right when Facebook was like taking off or whatever, and it wasn't ingrained in my habits or life or whatever. And I was it's just when you have that bias, it's so hard to like another thing that I like feel like I'm a student of the game at this point. Yeah. And like, I'm not going to play basketball against LeBron James unless I know that I'm on LeBron James's level. I like know that the people playing in this arena are like doing something that I don't understand and I don't know how to do. And like just a confluence of things, like some guy talked about it at War Room, who I actually just interviewed in my podcast, which was amazing. And he was like, so cool. If you want to scale your company from 6 million, he was the, Kajabi is like the Shopify for info products. Yeah. So like this guy, John Kronstadt, was, president. He was CEO of Kajabi from like 6 million to 100 million ARR. Tiger put in $200 million, a $2 billion valuation. He left. He's in this like strange in between, very unsatisfied place right now. Yeah. And I just like love talking to him because I can relate to the place that he's in so much. And he's like, what he said at War Room was like, Perry Belcher asked him if you could advise one thing to somebody who is about to scale, what would it be? He goes, I would say start posting every single day on LinkedIn what it's like to work at your company. Wow. And he's got this view that like dissatisfaction in the workplace is because of lack of meaning. And if you project, he likes to use a reference of Yellowstone. He's like, John Dutton, he's like, if you watch 3 seasons of that show, you know what it's like to work on that ranch. Like you're going to get in some fights. You're going to like whatever. It's like John Dutton is not putting his mission, vision, and values on the fucking wall and being like, you know, this is what we're all about. Like you already know before you start what you're getting into. And he thinks it's this like solution to like people opting into your job. It's like the solution. And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, I'm afraid or whatever. And then like I read Founder Brand by Gerhardt. And I think that's just like, it articulates so well the benefit of doing it. And then I became obsessed with the triple whale guys because like we're selling to the same people. At one point last year, we were both at like 10 million in revenue and we only had 30 overlapping customers, which is crazy. But like we were doing cold email and that's it. And they were doing social media and that's it. And I'm like, we should both be doing both of these things. Right, like we're not competitive. Yeah, like teach me how to do this. So Tommy from Triple Whale was like, dude, just like trust me. Like, let me start doing LinkedIn, you know, whatever. And then I realized that when it was coming from me, these posts would just do a lot better. Like I don't like typing. It takes me forever, but I can crank out video. So I was doing a weekly work in public. Tommy would do his thing. He'd like take email content and like he'd try to pull stuff out of me or whatever. But then when he started posting stuff that was my weekly work in public, it would get like 5 times the engagement. I believe it. And then I was like, I need to do this every day. Because I also think that with GTP3 and these agencies that will post for you on LinkedIn, authenticity, like they know how to like build an audience to some extent and it'll work fine. Right. But like people can feel authenticity. Right. Like
they can feel like if it's something's generic or if it's like so specific from the person.
Totally.
And then learn your style, learn your mannerisms, learn like everything about you. So then when you say it, they're like, oh, that's really Adam.
Yeah. And like like, I can't, like, the number of things that's happening every day now. Like, so when you're a company that's scaling in our stage, one of the things you do is you pay like Forrester or Gartner to like do a Gantt chart about, you give them 50 grand, they like make this report that you go show big customers, right? It's just a thing that happens.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a thing that happens in like the scaling process. And if you're a vendor, and like this woman from Forrester's like writes back to this email. It wasn't even on the call. It's like, Adam, I copied you on this email because I just wanted to say that I really enjoy your founder brand content. You know, it's like the reach of it is just so wild. And then I posted our financials just because I knew by what was going on that if I did that, I'd seen other people do stuff like that before, but like not like their profit in like category, whatever.
Yeah.
I did it under 48 hours ago. 6 people have asked me for a job. One of them has sold a company for $200 million. Like, no, I mean, like it's insane. You know what I mean? Crazy. It's like so crazy. You know, anyway, this is like a great foray into like what I want to just talk to you about. 'Cause I think we clearly connect over this. Like I've just been talking, you've been like, yep. So like the same thing is happening to you, obviously. So Ari Murray, VP Growth, Sharma Brands, Go to Millions, Creator Work Week. The thing that like, when I was sort of doing my research on you that I just like put a smile on my face is that on your LinkedIn, it says Shopify Plus is my middle name.
Thank you.
Like, I just like, I love that. I love that you're female. I love that you're like making this identity for yourself. The Shopify. So I'm going to stop talking in a second because this interview is about you, but like, I love, like, I'm new into this Shopify Plus ecosystem. So like we were selling to everybody who wanted to sign up on a self-serve product until like 5 months ago. And then we realized that our power users were all Shopify Plus stores, but we only had 50 of them. And there's like 15,000 and they were paying us tens of thousands of dollars a month. They were telling all their friends about it. And we just needed to go like head first into this market. And then I had this guy from Yotpo who's joining us full-time on February 1st, consulting for me to try to navigate this agency ecosystem because a lot of the Plus brands use agencies to execute and like they have the keys to the kingdom. And if you have a good solution, it'll spread super fast. And like all of the brands I've met, all of the agencies I've met, all of the other vendors I have met are fucking awesome. Like they are so, if you've made it that far as a DTC brand, you are an unbelievably special person. It's D2C is so hard. And if you're at like whatever, 5, 10, 20, 100 million in D2C revenue, like there is something, you are like a top 0.1% person in the world, I think. 100%. And the agencies that serve them, same deal. They're killing it too. Like it's amazing. So now turning it over to you, what inspired you to write that beautiful sentence, Shopify Plus is my middle name?
I actually wrote it before. So I used to be under an NDA, like my whole entire career, because I've worked for big celebrity brands or just stealth brands that had a lot of funding. And so I wrote that before I was ever like trying to do my LinkedIn profile or like trying to post on Twitter or have a newsletter or anything. I think I wrote that in like 2019 or something, and I kind of forgot I wrote that. And I only remember I wrote that because when salespeople will write me like cold emails, they'll be like, Ari, my middle name is their tech, and then I'll be like, oh, like I remember it. So I mean, I've only ever, at least when I wrote that, and even still, I'd say like 95% of the brands I've ever worked on are on Shopify Plus, and I've only ever been in e-com. And so I didn't really understand or come from small scale e-com or like little stakes. Like whenever I've ever had to turn on a new product or even like change my homepage, there's been like 30,000 site visitors at the same time. So that's just like a different level, and I'm still really only working with brands that are at that level, but just a lot more of them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the only people that our product works for, because it's kind of like we resolve traffic and we expand abandonment revenue. And if you don't have abandonment revenue and you don't have traffic, like it doesn't work. So like I just love it. And like, it's such a sweet ecosystem to sell into because you don't need to fill out vendor forms. Like there's not really in-house counsel most of the time. You know, it's like a really if you can show them something they can plug in and it will make them money, they're like, dude, you are my favorite person that I've met in the last 12 months.
Right. And it's like those brands have the budget for something that works.
Yes.
Because if it works, it'll make up for itself in like a week.
Right.
So it's definitely like the right place to be.
It's awesome. And I just like love that being like an identity because it's like such a sweet market. So, and by the way, when I was researching, I saw you interviewing I guess it was VPCS for Feastables.
Yes.
on
Jess.
Live. Yeah, they just onboarded our product right now. And I love that because like Mr. Beast has been doing this podcast tour and I knew nothing about this guy. And I find his words to be so inspirational. Like this man sat there for 10 years understanding everything about virality. I literally just made like a short about it.
Yeah.
Like the 4 things I learned from Mr. Beast or whatever. It's like, success is not an accident. And he has this other thing that I love. He's like, basically like, if you're not getting traction, it's because your content sucks.
Yeah.
And if your content sucks, you need better friends. You need people who are more honest with you about why it sucks. Yeah. You know, and like there's just so much truth in all of that, you know? Yeah. And it's like basic stuff, but I just like love it's like I think he's emblematic of what it takes to be successful. And it like and this go ahead.
I worked on that launch, or Sharma Brands did, and so we were there before and like in the stealth mode of it all. And you could just tell from like the first meeting with the first person that this wasn't just like a celebrity brand. This was like the level of care for the end customer and then the level of involvement from the creator. It's not like anything I've ever worked on before. And like the mission behind it all, which is so different because always before, or for most brands, the mission is like, we want to succeed, we want to get rich, we want to, you know, obviously make an impact, but those other things normally come before. But this is just like, I think there's a void in the market and I think we could like do something fun here. We should do this. And that's crazy. Like just the level of effort and like the core, like I think Mr. Beast is special because he like doesn't want to be fancy and rich. He just wants to like have more money to make more videos for more people to see, to like spread joy. Like what? Like it's crazy.
It's incredible. It's crazy. So I'm working with a woman right now who I thought my founder brand content lacked overall cohesion to it, if that made sense. It's kind of like I feel like I'm missing 2 things right now. One, with the path that I'm on, which is like we're gonna bootstrap $1 billion company in 12 months. This is so audacious, right? Like I just feel like somebody could guide the content to where it would, as you sprinkle it out, it would kind of drag people along like a mini series, and it wouldn't be that much incremental effort. The other thing is like editing. I feel like you need to hit the certain platforms in a certain way that I'm not doing right now. But like this girl was talking to me about Mr. Beast. She's like, you've been talking to me about like, what do you like about him? That he's at the top? I'm like, no, like not at all. Like I listen to him because he's at the top.
Right.
I respect how he got there, what he's doing now, and the fact that he literally could not be playing bigger.
Or couldn't have like a more altruistic motive. Like it's it's so freaky.
It's amazing.
It's the most famous, the most successful, and the nicest all in one. It's like, I hope he's like a trillionaire.
I mean, he's just incredible, and he has Crohn's disease, so he has to deal with this like debilitating chronic fatigue all the time.
And that's the reason for Feastables is because it's made with ingredients that work for him.
God bless him.
Yeah, for real.
We're going to crush it. We're going to crush it for those guys. I'm going to make sure of it. Okay, let's rewind a little bit. I can relate to the question I'm about to ask you because I was a credit default swap trader for 10 years, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Tell me about your journey from, like, let's say college to now.
Perfect. So I've always been a bit intense. I'm sure anyone can tell from talking to me for 3 minutes, but I was like a straight A student and I'm from a whole family of lawyers. So every man in my family except for me, well, except for like me and my sisters are lawyers. So I always wanted to be a lawyer to be like my dad. Then I had to get straight A's because you have to get straight A's to be a lawyer. Then I got straight A's in college, and then I went to law school for 1 semester because I've never been like more miserable or more like I had a full identity crisis that, wow, this is very dry. This is not going to be a good life for me. And so I dropped out of law school after 1 semester, and I needed a job, and I was humiliated because I had like put my whole identity into being this perfect student who was going to be a lawyer. And I took a job at Snack Nation, which is a B2B company that was spinning up e-com, and it's like healthy snack subscription. And I wanted to be a customer service manager there because I had no skills because I was a religious studies major who wanted to be a lawyer. And then I couldn't get the job as a customer service manager because I had no experience. So then they had a role for an e-commerce customer service support agent. And I didn't know what e-commerce was, but I thought, oh, if I do that, I'll get promoted to be a customer service manager, and then my dreams will come true. And then I quickly just like started to take over and run their Shopify, and I was crushing my tickets, and then also like merchandising the whole curations for the entire company, and helping with a lot of the operations, and helping with a lot of our campaigns. And it just like quickly spiraled into, wow, I definitely don't want to be a CX agent. That is hard work, and I can't type that fast. But I would love to like stay on the Shopify side of life. And then it's just been a ride from there.
So it sounds like by how you're talking about it, it's just you're getting an intrinsic reward from doing the work that you do now.
I love it. Like, and
it was just like not. This is like something that I like love pulling out of people because I just find what I do to be so riveting.
Yes,
and like it's a bummer to me that like people are spending their lives doing stuff. Like my last job, you just went there to make money, and everybody, if you gave people enough money, they would without question stop going to the office. Like I don't think you could pay me to not do this.
No, like
it would be great to have more money. It always is or whatever, but like I'm coming in tomorrow to do this. Like at night when I watch TV, I just will go on like a random website and I'll add things to my cart just so I can see the flow and like the cart experience. Like I will like every night I look at like 100 websites, and like often I'll trip and I'll buy something, but I fully like this is like my whole passion in life. I get to online shop for a whole living, so it's a good life. That's great. Helen would be very jealous of you. When you say that to her tonight, she'll be like, wait, what do you do again? Online shopping. Yeah. So what inspired you to start the Go to Millions newsletter? I, like, admittedly don't like this stuff. So I never posted on Twitter. I never posted on LinkedIn. And I was very much behind the scenes and very happy with it because I find a lot of the content, at least in my space, to be a bit the same or a bit of a like, I did this, no, I did that, and I don't find that interesting, and I don't think I've ever like learned. I learned on the job, so I don't really learn from ingesting this type of content. So I think that there might have been a gap in content that's actually interesting to read and a bit cheeky and fun, that is actually tactical from someone who's literally behind the scenes doing it versus like on the stage talking about it. Because when I started this, I was a director of growth, which is a job I've worked really hard to get to, but I certainly wasn't like invited to speak as a keynote at the biggest conference. And so I'm actually like all day long talking to clients. I'm literally in Shopify, and I know what I'm doing, and so I think I can tell other people how to do what I do, but not make it so dry. So that's the whole vibe of Go to Millions. I love that. Did you know that I'm sponsoring your newsletter? I knew you might. That's why I'm being so nice. Yeah, I got sent a contract last night. Oh, thanks. Thanks so much. So how do you even start a newsletter? So I started mine. Luckily, I use Workweek as my like Barstool Sports, and then I'm the Call Her Daddy. So I get to kind of rock up and focus on what I'm writing and focus on who I want this brand to be. And then I don't have to do any of the like
wow, we should switch ESPs, or like I don't have to do any of that, which would be really hard. And I get
or like, why is this guy Adam being such a dick?
No, I love it. I think you gotta hustle. But no, I think like I get to focus just on what I'm writing, and so for me, I got to like think of like, okay, if I was gonna name a newsletter, what would I name it? And then you got to think about just what it should be versus how to make it come to life. So that's how I started, just literally writing it, and then it launched.
But I guess my question's like, did you have an email list when you started?
No,
did you
zero.
just get pulled in?
Zero.
So like, was it your relationship with Daniel and Nick? Like how did the work week people be like, oh yeah, Ari, like you'll crush this? Like,
it's a funny story. So I work for Nick, who's Nick Sharma. He's very famous, the DTC guy. Everyone loves him. And then Nick and Daniel are friends independently, but then also close friends because Nick and Daniel are like two of my closest people in life. And Daniel's my husband. And then Daniel has the Marketing Millennials, which is a very big B2B marketing community. And I was telling Nick about it one day, just like randomly. Like, oh wow, it's like grown to like 400,000 people or whatever. And Nick's like, oh, you got to meet this guy, Adam, who is the founder of Workweek, because Nick works for Workweek too. And so then Daniel did a deal with Workweek. So then we have Nick and Daniel at Workweek.
Yeah.
And then Workweek was telling Daniel that they should have a go-to-market newsletter. And Daniel's like, I know just the And then I talked to them, and then I signed with them like one meeting later. I think I got it because I talked to them, and they're like, oh, if you ever have any ideas of what this should look like. And it was like a Friday at 5 p.m. And then at like 6:15, I sent them my first like welcome one email that I would write.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh shit, like she really did it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, she can write. Oh, she's kind of quick. She could probably handle this and her job.
She knows what she's talking about.
Yeah. And then
that's what people want.
Yeah. And then I just like signed from there. So it happened because of the circumstances of the people in my life.
Great. And then, so like that is the moment that it became real. It was like, it went from, and then so were you not posting on social before that? You were like totally behind the scenes. Then there's this newsletter. Then there's like, well, I should create a personal brand to go along with this newsletter and fuel it into like my own audience.
I was posting on LinkedIn like casually for a couple months, but only really to have my account help the marketing millennials. So I just wanted to like be a face that could help the marketing millennials. But I had never like been a person who tweeted. It was very much against my core of a person. But you know, now it's a thing.
Yeah, totally. I hear you. I mean, same boat. How do you think about the bar for content quality that you put out? So I interviewed Ron Shaw yesterday, and he's like, my bar is I will spend up to an hour on a tweet. I want somebody to look at it and immediately say, I learned something.
Cool.
You know? So like, do you have any framework? Do you have any like quality, or is it just like your standards are so high internally that like it's self-governing or whatever?
So it's a little self-governing. I don't spend any time really on my Twitter or any time on my LinkedIn. I'll kind of just post whatever. Like it's not as thought out, but my newsletter, which is like my core, most important piece of the whole thing, I will only write it if I'm in like a perfect mood, if that makes sense. Like I procrastinate it to the point where I'm like, oh, like I'm a little hungry, I shouldn't write this, or like I could use a nap or whatever, and I'll only write it when I'm like feeling like juiced up, and then I'll only write it when I have enough time to write it from subject line to scheduling it, because I think that I want it to sound like I'm talking about what I'm talking about versus like writing this newsletter with 8 sections or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so I just write it exactly in that order, and I'll write it only in the template, so like in the actual ESP I send it from, because I want to see how it looks, see like if it feels long, see if it feels like, oh, that was important to say, versus like, oh, there's these character counts or lines. So it's not really like a gut check of showing other people. I also don't show anything to anyone before I send it, so I'm not really looking for anyone else's opinion. I'm just, if I feel good about it, and if I wrote it, and if I feel like it has something to say, then it's good by me.
Love that. How long does it take you to write it?
it depends on if I like my idea. So between 40 minutes to 2 hours probably.
And then do you do another interesting thing about Mr. Beast was he was like a good idea with the way you, and email's different, but like with the way YouTube algorithm works, a good idea versus a great idea, like an idea that's 4 times as good as a good idea will get 40 times the distribution because like that's the way it works. So like he spends a huge amount of time on idea generation.
Right.
How do you treat idea generation? Do you have a backlog of ideas? Like,
yeah, so I have 3 newsletters a week. So I send on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So when I'm sending, like I have a Friday newsletter that's going out tomorrow that I wrote yesterday. But ever since I wrote the one before it, I've been thinking about what I should write on Friday. And I just think about it. I don't write it down. I don't have a log of like, oh, these are the 45 things I want to talk about this year. I'll just be in a client meeting and someone will bring something up that they don't understand, or we'll have an idea that worked and I'll be like, oh shit, that drove like an extra $220K this month or whatever it's going to be. And then I'll think about it, or it'll come up and then it will go down to paper. So I only sit down once I have the idea, which is why it takes me so long to sit down too.
Do you feel one of the reasons that I didn't want to get into this hustle was I was like, you can never stop feeding the machine. And I don't like that. I decided that the risk reward for me was wildly in favor of doing it, at least for several years while I was building this brand, because like social media is the only way you can advertise pretty much, trade shows and social media. People are on social, as Tony Clark says, they're on social media to connect with people. They're not going to connect to my retention.com page, whether I want them to or not, unless it's a person. You know what I mean? Like, like Tommy's like, I treat Triple Whale like my account, which is why it's growing. So my question is to you, do you feel trapped by this at all?
No, I feel inspired by it. And I think it's really cool to be able to say the things that I've always just said in a very small group to like the whole world or to whoever cares to read it. I think it's like the highlight of my career.
Really?
Yeah, I genuinely think it, like I would, if people stopped sponsoring it, if people stopped reading it, I like to think I would still write it, but I don't know if I would, because then I would just feel like no one cares, and I would find something else hopefully that people would care about or that I would care about. But I literally don't think I have another creative outlet in my day. Yeah. And it's really cool to be able to like say something at the end of the day. Or
that's how I'm feeling about all of this also.
Yeah.
And like
good.
the like people talk about like the muscle of creating content. And like I'm just feeling like it's exactly like you described. So I'm doing a few different things. Like one of them are like I do 5 3-minute videos a week where I'm like holding up like, you know, this is for the Ron Shaw one, like mentor pass, like I'm talking about him networking, right? Like, like send opportunities for free, you know, jam freely with your time with people. You got to post regularly, work in public. So like I'll do 5 of those, and I'm getting to the point where I can write them in an hour and then film them in another like hour and a half. But then for the show, the woman's trying to like capture the emotional journey of like being in the middle of all of this change. And the only way I can describe what's happening to me right now, this is a bit hyperbolic, but like Kanye had that documentary made about him when he was a producer and not a rapper yet. And like, this is like it's so clear to me what's going to happen. And like an example is like, every day I learn about a new brand that I love that's using our product. Like this morning, I learned that Baby Brezza was, and it's like a machine that makes formula at the perfect temperature, like an espresso machine on the touch of a button. It's life-changing if you have an infant. And like sometimes people send checks to my house because there's a billing mess up or whatever. And like Kelly, the finance girl, she's like, oh, that's Baby Brezza. Like they're meaning to pay by ACH, whatever. I'm just like, so this woman's encouraging me every time I experience emotion to just like selfie it real quick. I'm like, I'm holding my kid. I'm like, one thing that keeps happening to me, which I love, is like You know, this Baby Brezza thing. And then we found out Dr. Squatch made 50x ROI in November with our product. 50x. Not only that, they're willing to do a case study, and he's willing to sit next to me on stage at Grow, the founder.
Okay. Dr. Squatch is North Star of life. So that is, you've made it. You've done it.
So like another thing, I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Dr. Squatch. And then like this other thing happened last week where I met this guy, Arthur, through a contact. He's got this company called Nostra.ai, which like sells into the big Shopify vendors, like kind of like a headless website in 30 seconds, improves speed, and then they have personalization. And he says it works great. I want to get like some people trying it. And like, we're doing this crazy ambitious stuff. Like I hired so many people, and like I've got this plan that seems so clear, you know? And he's like, do you do any advising for companies? And I'm like, dude, like 4 months ago, nobody would have ever asked me that. Right. so like, no, you know, but like it's like the circumstances and the personal brand and everything is like it. So that was like another thing. I whipped out the phone. I'm like, another thing I've been thinking about, like this really emblematic of the type of change that's occurring in my life right now. I have this guy who 4 months ago, I would have not been any kind of like a role model or like a couple steps ahead. And now all of a sudden, like he wants to give me equity in his company to just update him on what I'm doing. Right. You know, like
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's totally crazy. And like, maybe that's not because of the founder brand, it's because of other stuff, but like, it's just wild. Like all of this stuff at once, you know, and all of this is like, sort of like, once you start expressing yourself in this way, there is this like kind of creative relief that comes from it. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like very cathartic, and it feels nice to be participating versus either on the sidelines or deciding like, oh, that's not for me. I don't do that. And then you turn in like a blind eye to it, because there's a lot of important work or important relationships or whatever you get from it or whatever comes from it that happened because you like decided just to participate in something that you have been given the opportunity to do versus saying no or being scared of it. Yeah. Love it. So your husband, Daniel, how has your relationship with him influenced your path as a creator?
Well, we met at work at Snack Nation when I was 23 and he was 24. So we've only ever known each other as the dynamic of coworkers. And so it's always been like in our day, we always talk about work, we always talk about marketing. And so I actually have been helping him with the Marketing Millennials since before anyone listened to the podcast or anyone followed our LinkedIn. I've been his like little secret editor and helping him with ideas, like the logo, every little thing that like he's touched, I help him with, and the same for everything that I do, he helps me with. And so we're sort of these like uncredited founders for each other's work, because that's just what we do. Like he doesn't turn in an ad that I haven't helped to write or helped to see, and I don't ask a podcast question that he didn't help to write or help to see. Like that's just how we are. Yeah. So he's been like the most important. Actually, at Work Week where we both work, I have to tell him to like stop. Like if I hit like a certain subscriber number, he puts it in my Slack group, and I'm like, this is embarrassing. Like leave it alone. Like you can't like do this. So he's just like the most supportive and the most helpful. And it's really cool to see someone who's doing it at a much bigger scale. Yeah. But it's like when he wins, we all win. So it's a totally good vibe.
Yeah, in that LinkedIn Live podcast, I just saw him like peppering with questions and stuff.
Oh yeah,
like from both accounts. Like he's like, and well, what do you think about that?
I'm like, literally get out of here. Like, you're embarrassing. He's so sweet.
That is amazing. So what's like the most valuable lesson that you've learned from him?
I think he put himself out there before he made $1 from it. And he did it for a long time. And he met and talked to a lot of cool people. And when he did it, I was a little nervous about it all. I was like, well, won't your day job get mad? Like, you're kind of doing this, like, this is, like, distracting. Like, what if people think it's embarrassing? And he's like, I don't care. Like, I'm learning. I get to talk to cool people. Like, it's nothing's going to stop me. And it's so impressive to me because I've become less shy And he has become less shy too. Like, he's really grown into himself, and this is like what he was supposed to be doing. So
Right.
it's really cool to just see someone doing it and who did it without abandon, like before it was cool and before it benefited him.
Totally. I heard Alex Hormozi describe this one time. He's like, your free stuff, if it's better than your paid stuff, it's amazing. And then the longer you wait to ask, the bigger the ask can be.
Exactly.
You know? I like love that. And it just came into my mind when we were talking about that. So have you learned any different lessons from Nick, who's like the absolute, when you talk about North Stars, like he is the personal brand guy in e-com, I feel like. Any different lessons from him on doing this than Daniel?
I think the thing that you can learn from Nick or just study from Nick is he knows every single person in the entire ecosystem that is e-commerce, and he also puts like deep energy and time into those dynamics. Like his birthday, he had a Sharma Nights, which is like a networking dinner that he throws on his birthday. Like there's just like he purposely put it on his birthday.
Yeah.
And it's like, because those are his friends, and this is what he enjoys to do. So, like, if you talk about loving your craft or, like, no separation between, like, I don't think he dreads, you know, Sunday night for Monday morning. I think he's very happy with, like, this life. And
Totally.
It's very cool to see someone who, like, still works out every day, still sleeps 9 hours a night, is still really fucking nice, and then knows everyone because that's who he socializes with. So it's there's no like separation.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, and I see why. Like I said before, like, so this is the comparison that I like to like make when I'm talking about how great I think the Shopify Plus ecosystem is. The first company I started was poaching customers from Constant Contact. Mm-hmm. Love them, but like it was a very hard customer base to build software for. It was like baby boomer, non-e-commerce, you know, flower shops, one newsletter a month. You can't build features that make the email work better than they will value and pay you more for.
Right.
And like, you'd send a survey out and you'd be like, are you a not-for-profit? And they'd be like, not by choice.
Oh God.
You know, and like,
yeah.
and like, I just feel like Nick might feel the same way. Like, you know, he wouldn't be throwing Sharma Nights on his birthday if that was what he, you know, if that was what he was like, the ecosystem he was dealing in. And I totally get it. It's like these people are inspirational, and it's like, it's life-giving to me to spend time with someone in this hustle in any meaningful way, you know?
And it's actually like my entire friend group, which is, it's so weird because just through Daniel and all of his friends, and like when I think about who I hang out with, it's the people who have like a similar life.
Yeah.
It's just because we have so much in common.
Yeah, I get it. Awesome. Okay. For someone, if people are listening to us talk about this personal brand stuff, and by the way, I have been at it, no joke, like I started it like October 1st. And I think my LinkedIn has gone from like 1,500 followers to 13 or 14,000, which is not what Daniel's is, but like,
that's quick.
It's working. Yeah. It's like really like, our company page has gone from 20 followers to 4,000. Like, and the benefits are like what we're talking about. It's just, it's like soft, unquantifiable benefits. I do these daily videos, and at least between 500 and 1,500 people watch every single one of them.
There we go.
One of my coworkers like, think about how hard it would be to talk to 500 people. It would be impossible.
How expensive to get there.
Yeah, and like it's organic, and like people are, you know, he's like they're getting to know you, you know, just slowly over time. So, you know what you did, I know what I did. Mine was kind of expensive because I just needed a lot of help to get started, and was like in sort of a different place than you. But someone who has zero personal brand to end up in the journey that you're on, like where would you start?
I would start by knowing what you're about to talk about extremely well.
Yeah.
So I think there's there's no better like media training than knowing your stuff. And there's no better content than past experience or current lived experience. So if you're going to go talk about a subject, make sure you, A, like, know it really well, and B, you enjoy it enough to talk about it and to go do it every day, because that's then a lot of your, waking hours. And then you just have to do it. You have to either decide, okay, I'm going to post on every channel, or I'm going to post on one channel, or I'm going to write something, or whatever you do, but you have to do it, and you can't be embarrassed or shy about it, because if you think that it's not embarrassing, it is super embarrassing sometimes, but you still have to go do it, and you have to like not be scared of it, because the participation is the like level of entry is what's blocked from, like, if you don't participate, then you don't know if it could be a good thing for you, so you have to try it, but you have to know your stuff.
Have you made any mistakes that people could learn from in your pursuit of this?
I wouldn't call it a mistake, but I think because this kind of happened very quickly for me, I started my newsletter, the first issue went out like May 30th, let's call it, and the branding was finalized on May 29th, and I really did not like it, but what am I going to do?
Right.
You got to ship it. But like, it's really like important. And like a lot of what I talk about is like, like logos or brand or consistency. And that's what I speak about. And then I'm like looking in my email, and the masthead it's like a pink hex I cannot handle. And it's just one of those things where when you're working quickly, like, could I have stopped my newsletter from going out for 4 months while we played with the logo? Yes. Did we? No. So we just redid it, and now it's perfect, and I love it. But I redid it in January when it was convenient. So I think the mistake is, like, when you sometimes start something quickly, it's a bit rough around the edges sometimes, but it shouldn't stop it.
I think that's a good thing. Santos says, I reference this guy all the time, he's like transitioning to COO. He's built 5 unicorn data companies. He's like my everything. Like, this guy is like a mentor figure. He's building this whole thing for us. He's like, man, in this position we're in, which, like, you're kind of in a similar position in a different way, he's like, good is good enough. Or like, okay is good enough. He's like, we're doing a rebrand right now. It's like, do it fast. Like, we'll probably rebrand again before the end of the year. Just like, get it done, get it out there. Doesn't need to be perfect. It will work, It, like, anything is better than nothing. And like, anything is better than what we have right now also. So yeah, I can sort of relate to that philosophy. So, where do you see yourself in 5 years and 20 years? 2 questions. So let's do a 5-year first, and then like way down the line.
5 years, I see myself hanging out with the go-to-millionaires in a hopeful similar way. I see myself living in Austin, maybe with like a little baby.
Yes.
Yeah. I see myself working at Sharma Brands even in 5 years, and still working every day with brands, and then writing about it every night. So I see the same life, just maybe with like a few additions.
I mean, you are fucking winning.
Yeah, it would be.
That's my opinion.
That would be a good life.
Like, if you're just like, all I want is a kid, and I'm not changing anything else, like, you are winning. And then 20 years, any change, or like, do you just want to just be in the hustle, like, as long as it makes sense?
The problem with my life now, because in 5 years my baby will be a baby, so that's okay. But in 20 years, hopefully I'll have like more time and more hours to give to my life that isn't my work life.
Yep.
So 20 years, maybe I'll have to change one of those things that I work on. So something's going to have to give, because there's not going to be time for all of it. So more balance, but hopefully the same pieces, and still working in e-com, still helping people make millions of dollars, and then just more focus on like the rewards of the life that is working hard.
Do you have a personal financial goal for yourself, or is it just kind of like, if I can sort of...
I want a Birkin.
A Birkin?
Yeah, it's
What's that, like $80K or something?
It depends which one.
120?
It can be like 30, but I really want a Birkin, and that's pretty vain, but That's what I think about. Like,
Don't worry
people
about
want boats or houses or cars. I would love a really expensive purse. That's
Are you hearing that, Daniel? Are you listening
he knows.
right now?
No, he knows.
Yeah.
There's also
but
a
now
number. There's
right.
a number attached to the Birkin, so I know what I got to do, and then he knows what he's gonna have to do.
I absolutely love that. So, if you could put one thing on a billboard, what would it be?
Ooh. I would probably put like a QR code that leads to my newsletter, and like no words next to it so that people scan it.
Yeah, nice. I didn't ask you this. How are you collecting emails? Like, what different ways?
So
tactically,
every time I post on LinkedIn, I put like a link to subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
I have a button right after the intro of my newsletter that says like, "Are you subscribed? Like, sign up here." That leads to a lot of subs. Twitter, every time I have a thread, I put links to subscribe, and then it's just a lot of word of mouth. I don't like text my friends that, like, a lot of my family or a lot of my friends, they don't even know we do this.
Yeah.
I feel like if they're supposed to find it, they'll find it. And then so it's basically just from social and then just word of mouth.
Got it. And then the final 5, we touched some of this stuff, but where do you live?
I live in Austin, Texas.
Me too.
Same.
Looking forward to dinner tonight.
Me too.
I'm taking Daniel and Ari to a restaurant.
Well, it's not sure you're taking us, but we're going to dinner.
Yeah. I'm treating. I'm telling you that right
decided.
now. Relationship status?
Married.
Favorite person you're following right now?
Daniel Murray.
Daniel Murray. Love that. What's your favorite book?
Ooh, I would say East of Eden.
Nice.
Yeah. Religious studies major. I mean, I read a lot of like deep lit.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. I love that. And your favorite vacation you've ever been on?
Ooh. I would say New Zealand at New Year's in 2019. Yeah, good.
Love that. My sister spent a couple of years in New Zealand. I never made it over. I really want to go. Here, it's the most beautiful place ever.
The time change, you can still work. It's like the next day, but it's the same hours.
Just keep doing that loop.
Keep working. Yeah.
Man, what a fantastic conversation. Ari Murray, thank you for enlightening us on everything that it is to be amazing. Nick didn't lie, neither did Daniel. You actually are a genius. I'll certify you. Boom.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, guys.
Sweet. I'm going to stop recording, and then we got to let this thing upload for a second.
Did you see the window cleaners beside me?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But
it was freaking me out. I muted. I tried so hard. I don't know how they decided